Well, good morning, and thank you for joining another episode of CREDE Play Offense. Today, I'm here with my dear friend Michael Kollin of Kollin Altomare, or otherwise known as KA Architects. Been fortunate enough to do a ton of work with he and his team over the years. So, Michael, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure that you think enough of me to ask me to be part of this, and I appreciate it.
Well, you're one of those fun folks in the industry that don't just do the bread and butter cookie cutter. I mean, from multi-SNM to hospitality all over the world, to being a partial owner of a race car team. I think you're unique.
That's true, and it's been a lot's been accomplished in 30 years. I'll tell you, that's for sure.
Overnight success for 30
Yeah,
years.
absolutely. Yeah.
Well, so
Yeah.
we were fun enough to actually meet through our kids, which happens a lot in real estate. But maybe give a little of the background of how did you get in this business, and uh, why architecture, and how did you end up starting your firm?
Yeah, good questions, and I'm glad you asked those. So, boy, ever since I've been in maybe ninth or 10th grade, I knew that somehow architecture and design was going to be for me. So it was easy to roll from high school into college and work on that career development. It just seemed like something that I would always be comfortable with versus being a CPA or a doctor or anything of that nature. So I always knew from that early age what I wanted to do. I didn't realize how hard or difficult or how different it would be from what my perceptions were early on. And but I was lucky enough to land with a couple of good firms right out of school where I got a really good education and some good experience. And then, fortunately or unfortunately, in 1995, so I'd been working for probably 10 years, I got laid off. There was a recession in 95. And I found that that's when I listen. As most young architects at that time, I was doing side work, so I had the ability to stay busy, and that's when I started my own firm. I decided to go full time in '95, starting with a practice. You know, originally just me by myself working out of my house. Then I rented an office space, and before you knew it, I had 5, 10 employees, and um, here we are today. I had some great breaks along the way too. And if you don't mind, I'll share that because I was just thinking about this as I was contemplating what we were going to talk about today. And while everybody sees now our great website and the hundreds of projects we've done, nothing really happens overnight. And a lot of things are, whether it's based on luck or connections and relationships. So I had been relatively out on my own for maybe 6 months. I was invited to play in a golf tournament in Malibu with a broker from um, CB Ellis. And from there, I met a contractor, Don Hatch, that you know. And he was working on a project at the Ritz-Carlton Laguna Niguel. They didn't have a permit. They got stopped. I got a call from him the next day, and I put together a quick set of as-built, got it permitted in a day. And that's what started my hospitality career. The very next week, the director of engineering, Pat Risco, had a directors of engineering conference at his hotel with 150 engineers. He was able to pass my name around to everybody. And a week later, I was flown off to Kapalua at the Ritz-Carlton Kapalua to do a small project. And that small project turned into a 20,000 square foot pavilion at the Ritz-Carlton called the Aloha Garden Pavilion. And then the next thing you know, I was at 4 other resorts in Hawaii designing indoor outdoor pavilions. So that's how it got started, and it just kind of mushroomed from there, right? And prior to doing hospitality, we did an awful lot of retail, commercial, office buildings, and we still tap into some of those. And we've done quite a few custom homes across the U.S. and Hawaii as well. But that's just how things got started. And the reason I say that is just because sometimes through adversity or through troubled times, some of the best times come, right? And I always do look at it that way. Like there's something positive to be gained from something negative that might happen in the life. And that that one thing of being laid off that caused me to start focusing a little bit more, and then having the good luck and the good relationships, I think helped to um, kick off the career to the next level. And where we're at now, we're at 20 some odd people with 2 offices, one in Long Beach where we're headquartered, and an office in Chicago. I have a great leadership team with my partner, Paul Altomare, Mike Delsman, who's our our managing director in Chicago. And then I have Brian Husting here, who's our senior designer and architect out of Long Beach, and Stephen Harrell, who's our lead designer out of Chicago. And with that leadership team, there's such a huge resume and experience that goes along with that helps me and the rest of the team to be able to sell ourselves all across the U.S. So we're licensed in 33 states. We recently completed a big project in St. Thomas, so we're doing work still in the Virgin Islands, work in Hawaii, Mexico. We even did a project in Dublin, Ireland many years ago. So that's a little bit about how we got started, and I could probably go on for hours just about that.
Well, Michael, it's always interesting in our businesses. I mean, our CFO Jay says we're all in the elevator business, meaning that when the employees get in the elevator, it's the most dangerous time of the day because that. But yeah, how do you balance, especially for newer architects coming up, the idea of workload or new business coming versus staffing versus overstaffing? Because we always say, if you're not running at 85, 90% utilization, there's not a whole lot of room to truly keep people on the side or on the bench if they're only working for 50% of the time. So
Yeah,
that's
I would say
to balance that.
Yeah, that's probably the toughest part of our business. And even after 30 years, I don't know that I manage that very well. I'm getting better and better at it. And like you, I tend to think of my staff as family and as team members. And it's always hard to know when to transition and when people have to be laid off or let go, depending on workload, right? In our businesses, we don't always have the ability to have an order of widgets coming in. We know that if a job lasts 3 months, 6 months, jobs can get put on hold. And unfortunately, maybe a year ago, a couple of our large projects, two that we're working on together, actually were put on hold. And so at that point, I was faced with having 6 people that were working full time on these two projects that we kept holding on to because the jobs should have restarted. I wanted the jobs to restart. And so I think that's probably my biggest downfall is that I maybe don't always put the business aspect of that first, and I was putting the employee side and trying to maintain that family atmosphere. But that hurt us a little bit with our revenue for that period of time when we're just now recovering. And a lot of that, I think, has to do with the interest rates that those were multiple ground up new projects, right, that hadn't received full financing and funding yet. And that's why those projects were put on hold. But managing staff, it's been a tough thing to do because not only do I have to nurture our clients and consultants, but there's the staff component as well. I have a great internal team of our HR and marketing person as well, but every employee has a different value, right? A different uh, difference of what makes them tick. Some are there for the finances, for the financial incentive. Others want the title. Others want the experience. And we do try to give the experience to everybody and hopefully nurture all the students right out of school or even interns to becoming job captains and then ultimately project managers and hopefully licensed architects one day. And we have a few of those that recently became licensed. So that's always something proud. And going even a step further in my career here, we've had 2 people that have worked with us as juniors coming up, getting to the point of getting licensed and actually going off and starting their own firms. And, maybe 10 years, 15 years of working for us and doing something like that. And while it's sad to see them go, I'm very proud of them, just as if they're my children growing up and getting out of college, right? So, so that part's been enjoyable, but yeah, maintaining the staff morale, trying to work, project workload. I would say that in all these years, I doubt we've had very much overtime. Our team tends to get the work done. I think working hospitality, we haven't had an awful lot of Monday morning deadlines. So we have time to schedule our staff and schedule our team and our workload, um, jumping between the 2 offices when we need to push a project out. Now, back earlier before I started my own practice and I was working commercial, we had deadlines and overtime every week, working directly for developers that needed something yesterday. So it was a change for me going into the hospitality or focusing more on hospitality, anyways. So yeah, so I would say working with each of our team members during their reviews and seeing what it is that they'd like to see, what they'd like to do. We do try to gear everybody's career to a point that they're satisfied with their career, that they have some motivation, and that they have the ability to succeed in their career, whatever that might mean to them. So that's a big part of our office here. So thanks for asking.
So we track the ABI Architectural Building Index quite closely, different regions, different sections, and such. And yeah, it's been no surprise when interest rates went up, you saw a big dip. It's always a great leading indicator for us.
Yeah,
Uh, we're seeing it come back in a big way for 25 and 26 in the forecast. And as construction project managers, we often see it be a 90 to 180-day forecast. What are you seeing in your mind right now with clients for 2025? And I know you're with hospitality, so other
yeah.
classes areas.
Yeah, so I would say we're seeing that same demand right now. Over the last month, I want to say our phones have been ringing off the hook, but it hasn't been quite that good. But we're getting more and more interest on projects rebooting that have been stalled for a while. But we are getting invited to more RFPs, and I'm getting just yesterday I got a call from another one of our good clients asking excuse me, how much could we rush another project? And, come today or come tomorrow, I could be pulling 3 people to work just to get this project done. So I am seeing a stronger demand, and I'm seeing that all across the different sectors of hospitality, from luxury down to select service. So I am seeing more and more of a demand, and frankly, we're starting to do more retail as well. We just landed a corporate account from a Japanese-based client for a retail eyewear company, and we're pitching another corporate account next week for another brand. So it'll be interesting. I really do feel, for the first time in a long time, that 2025 is going to be a really good pivotal year for us, and probably get back to those pre-pandemic days and years that we were experiencing.
Yeah, it's interesting. We have a lot of similar sentiment from our clients and investors. Some are still looking for distress, some are still looking for that inverted curve. Uh, but it really is sector by sector and city by city. So it's a different animal when you're doing renovation work versus ground up, because basically people always talk about, well, things are overbuilt or this or that. It's like when you're looking 4 years down the road and everyone else is stopping, now is the time to be leaning in, because you can actually deliver when everything else is filled up or now old.
Right. And I wanted to mention too that our relationship. I was trying to think that you and I have probably known each other at least 5 or 6 years, but our relationship goes back a little further. Is that, and again, talking about how a lot of what we do is all about relationships. I met Steve Opp maybe 10 years ago, and because our kids go to school together, and we met at a function, and he recognized my name and maybe have seen a job sign of ours, and from there we just started talking about how can we work together one day, right? And it took a couple of years, maybe 2, 3, 4 years, but Steve got me involved in a few things, and that's where I got to meet Ted Torres as well, another great guy of your team. And then ultimately from there, I got to meet you, and we've probably worked on 7 or 8 projects now together, and some very small, from cost estimating up to some hundreds of millions of dollars of new construction in Columbia, South Carolina, and West Palm Beach, Florida. So it's been a great career so far, and great coordinating and working with you guys. And I will say that I do love working with your team. You've got a strong team of professionals that I know as an architect I can rely on. I call you, I call Ted, I call Steve for any general question I might have, whether it's how the market's doing or what they're seeing from a certain brand. And it's nice to be able to have that informal connection, and get the advice from people that I consider my peers. And so I appreciate that. And thanks for building a good practice yourself.
Well, thank you. It's there's been always ups and downs, but we are who our people are, and
Yeah, right.
and it's really fun to work with friends. I mean, not just
Yep.
working together, but you and I've shared suites at the Grand Prix and
Yeah.
passion for different things. And maybe get on that a little bit. I mean, I see it behind you, but how did you get into such a passion for cars?
Wow. I think I've been going to the Long Beach Grand Prix for probably 25 years, maybe longer, as long as I can remember since I've been living in Long Beach. I think I could hear the roar of an engine one day out in my house, and I said, "What is that?" And the next thing you know, I was hopping every year to different seats around the Long Beach Grand Prix, inviting a few friends. And then, as you know, fortunately or unfortunately, I got hooked and I started getting suites. Then we got two suites, and we had wonderful partners and sponsors such as yourself. And the next thing you know, we'd have 80, 100 people in our suites for 3 days. Um, so that just mushroomed out of the passion, I think, of always hearing the sound of the race cars. And I suppose as my secret life, it would be to be a race car driver. But now, granted, I'm terrible at driving or racing, but because I've tried a few times just at tracks. But it's fun, and in my mind, I still feel like a kid, and I love the exhilaration of driving 140 or 150 miles an hour, and I love to see these cars and the engine. So, yeah, so that passion's been great, and I'll tell you. I got more involved in it maybe 5 years ago. We were interviewing a new candidate right out of college, and he said, "Hey, I have to ask you, if I get this job, can I have 10 Thursdays and Fridays off this year?" And I looked at him kind of strange. I said, "Well, why? That's a strange question to ask." And he said, "Well, I just became a pro race car driver, and my race team has me scheduled to drive all across the U.S. for SRO America." And so I'm kicking Paul under the table, and I said, "You're hired." So from there, I was able to travel with him and his race team. And I think that got me a little more involved because I got to see the behind the scenes and to see how much strategy is really involved, right? You can be a good driver, but if you don't have a good team and a good crew, everything can be changed. A lot of these races are won and lost by seconds. So that's how my passion got started. It hasn't ended yet, but yeah, and I'm hoping
Yeah,
to get out to an F1 one of these days.
it's always interesting how many
Yeah,
correlations there are between racing and good teams and what we do.
yeah,
You know,
right.
as we
Yeah,
talk about things accelerating, your business when at least when I started was CAD was really just kind of starting. We had a lot of great architects that were still felt pens and
yeah,
tracing paper, and then we went to CAD, then we went to truly AutoCAD. Then we went to Rhino
yeah.
and Red. And maybe talk about where do you see the combination of upscaling via offshoring and AI coming into your business?
Yeah, so we've already been working with that, and you know, um, so my partner Paul here is definitely the technical guy that leads that division in our office, and I've seen a lot of the different things that we've been doing as designers, and and frankly, we still do some freehand sketches and designs because there's a couple of us old school guys here that really like the feel of the pen in the hand and the colors. And but then we do transition it to the computer and start working in different programs. But on every project now, we do multiple renderings, smaller projects, larger projects, a lot of the renderings that get generated, and then how we work into some AI versions of those renderings and sketches. So it's come a long way just in a short period of time, and I'm really excited to see what will happen in the next 5 years to see where we go from there. You know, I'm hearing from some visualization experts and artists that are in our industry that they're maybe nervous that AI is going to take their jobs away. And I doubt that's going to happen, and I hope it doesn't. But I do see that there's a collaboration and a need for our great designers still and our renderers, and to see how they can probably better implement what comes out of AI. But absolutely, I'm excited to see what it does for our future.
Yeah, it was an interesting quote I read the other day that 58% of the jobs that are in the United States today did not exist in 1942.
Wow.
And so it's to me it's just about how do people adapt. But
Right.
we started using the digital twin concept years ago on larger projects, not just for funding but to actually recreate three-dimensional plans truly to a BIM 600 plus level. And then just to also have it for ongoing maintenance and ordering and ease of operation. So it's yeah, it is an interesting thing because you can not even from the architectural side, but the MEP side, I'm amazed at how much more efficient AI makes conduit routing as an example.
Yeah, we've just started investigating digital twinning, and it hasn't been something for us yet for our size of firm. But as our projects grow and get larger, I know that that's something that'll be a part of our future because it really does seem to be a great product for the industry.
Agreed, and it's it's an interesting time in your business as well because it used to be no different than us. You have the kind of the one person shop or the person with that true local knowledge, and now as we've all post COVID gone remote or have the ability, you're seeing a lot more collaboration across the United States or even across country lines where you can have teams in Colombia or the Philippines or Guatemala, and or you can have allegiances between architectural groups or mergers, or it's so very similar like what we do in our role, and just it seems like there's a great amount of synergy for things like that in your business. Or you can,
Yeah, I agree, and I think what this does is it helps to streamline everything from the architect, the engineers, the PM, CM companies, contractors, ownership. I think it does help to streamline the vision, right? And streamline conversations. And hopefully that's all going to help us to minimize the risk and um, be more transparent with issues when they arise. So I do hope that on my end that is what we all see, that there's a better collaboration, better sense of teamwork because everything is a lot more transparent and quicker to being brought to our attention.
yeah, I totally agree with that. It's for us, we're amazed. I just got off a call going through a couple of different systems that are, not just modular, but what we call 2D prefab, which is, portions of projects being prefabricated offsite and in Europe. And it's amazing how economical they are for projects that are 30,000 square feet and larger, but
Right.
what you can do with it. And it's not just the standard box that it used to be. So, yeah, totally.
Yeah. I'm really interested in learning more about modularization of hotel rooms. Right, I've been doing some research on that, and while we haven't practiced any of that directly ourselves, I've been watching some videos and just seeing about that, and it looks pretty interesting to me, and it may be a way of the future. Um, uh, let's face it, oftentimes our clients need to get their hotels built quickly because until they open those doors, there's no revenue. And so that's something of interest to me that I hope to see over the next several years that our office gets a little more involved with.
Well, maybe, and if you don't mind, just going back on hospitality, you
Yeah,
talk a little bit to the listeners, especially new hoteliers. We always talk about flags, and there's the flags and the unflagged hotel, and there's a pro and a con. On a flagged hotel, you typically end up with a little bit easier financing if you have the brand behind it.
yeah.
What's your role as an architect, pushing back on brand standards or
Well, so for those that don't know, let's say a lot of our clients might be REITs that own several hotel brands, right? I can't say any of them are particularly um, beholden to one particular brand. So they might buy a portfolio of hotels from Hyatt's, Marriott's, Hilton's, IHG, and so they'll carry that flag with that particular product. So over the years, it really hasn't changed. Ownerships and brands have to get along, and flags have to get along, right? And it's a mutual beneficial relationship. But every brand has their standards, and we are typically hired by the ownership of the hotel, who will give us perhaps a PIP, right, a property condition report, and we'll build on that. We'll build on their vision, but then we have to start coordinating with the brand. We'll coordinate with the Marriotts or the Hiltons or the Hyatts to make sure we're meeting their brand standards and guidelines. But there might be times when our ownership say, well, you can push back on items 6, 7, and 8, and let's not give item number 9. And that's where we start getting in the middle and keep our fingers crossed that there's no bad blood that comes across because let's face it, we work with those flags and brands on the next job. And so ultimately, at the end of the day, everybody's been happy. Everybody gets what they need out of the project, but there is that balancing. I almost relate that to, we've done over 300 custom homes, and we don't focus much on that anymore. But it's like working with a husband and a wife. It's you get two different opinions of how the house should be designed, and that's kind of how it is with the brands and the ownerships. And ultimately, our job is to make sure that for sure that the ownership's satisfied, but that we meet the brand standards or to the level of what they've negotiated.
What as we start to close out this year, what's the most exciting thing for you on the plate and the hopper for next year?
Well, so not about as far as projects go, or just our future. What do you? Let's see. I've got
In
quite a few.
Yeah, in general, buddy.
Yeah, in general. So I would say probably the most exciting thing for us in the future is that um, um, we're in the development right now in discussions with a national brand firm to be acquired, and it's a large national firm that we've been courting and back and forth for the last few years. And for us, it seems like it's going to be very exciting. An ability to for me to start selling larger projects, to have much more of a project experience list, to have hundreds of more employees at my ready. So there's some big things that'll be coming starting early part of next year, and we've already been ramping up for that growth, for that projection, for that acquisition. Um, and so it's really exciting. It's exciting for myself and for Paul and for all the staff here. I think it'll give the staff and the team a much better appreciation and the ability to work in offices more than just Chicago or Long Beach here, and to work on a variety of projects that maybe they haven't been accustomed to. So there's a lot of excitement and buzz around the office now, just with that with the acquisition. And we're still under an NDA, of course, but come January we'll be able to rock and roll and have some great press releases and what have you. So that part's really exciting. Um, and beyond that, we already have we have a great workload already set up for 2025. We've had a number of projects in the pipeline that have been under design and development that are all starting construction January, February, March. I'll have 10 projects under construction that'll last about a year or 18 months. So my team is going to be very busy just with CA duties. But like you said earlier, when we talked about workload and streaming revenue and how do you keep that in play, we've been working for the last 6 months trying to build design and construction document projects to be able to step in for 2025 to fill that void, because I still need to keep my staff busy. But there's an awful lot that's been happening. And, I've had somebody recently tell me, in our business, in the sales, never take your foot off the gas. And unfortunately, when here and there, I have taken my foot off the gas. I've been complacent with what we have and thinking, well, I'll tackle something next month or the following month. And but we're coming out of that now. And I think a lot of this too is frankly, I've been watching your growth and talking to both Ted Torres and Steve Opp, watching your LinkedIn campaign, and we've been somewhat modeling ourselves with that as well. Getting ourselves out into the public eye more often. I'll be personally, my goals for next year is I'll be going out once a week to all of our job sites myself. And let's face it, I haven't had to go to a job site in many years, right? But I miss going to the job sites and connecting with the contractors, seeing our ownerships, sitting into an OAC meeting to hear what's going on. Oftentimes now I only get brought into projects when there's a potential risk that needs to be evaluated. So it is nice to get back in with the boots on the ground, and I do plan to get more involved. Again, at least one day a week for all of next year, to start looking at all of our projects and having that face-to-face contact with all the people that are so important to us and our projects. In addition to that, I'll be tagging onto the coattails of Ted Torres and trying to hit half the amount of conferences and networking events that he goes to. I don't think I have the same energy that he does, but he sure has been a great
Very few do.
he sure has been a great influence to me, and I feel like I've learned quite a bit of sales and marketing techniques from hanging on to him.
Well, if you were to give advice to somebody coming out of undergrad or master's wanting to get into the architectural business or design business, what would you
Yeah,
what would
yeah.
you tell them?
Like I tell everybody, the first thing is that you have to love what you do, and I know, fortunately for me, I've always loved having a pen in hand or doing design and doing concepting. Um, and we get quite a few interns that come through the office, whether they're high school interns and architects or first, second, third year college architectural students. And I want to show them what the reality of this business is. The first 5 years out, it's not pretty. You're not going to be designing the next hotel. You're going to be learning from our team. You're going to be working on details. You're going to be working on the nuts and bolts of projects. And we do try to get our younger team out to job sites to see when you're drawing a wall, what it looks like in reality. When you see a duct that you're drawing, what does that duct look like when it's being installed in the soffit? So we try to get our team, especially our younger team, on more and more job sites. Try to get them involved in meetings early on, so they can listen in just to hear what a ownership meeting might sound like, or a meeting with a contractor and the subcontractors. Getting out to cities for plan check and permit processing. There's a lot of administrative work that goes on, as you know, in our business, and those are some of the things that everybody needs to learn. And the sooner you learn how to work with that, the better. But frankly, too, what I found over the last 10 years is a lot of the younger, I'm going to say, kids coming out of school aren't aren't as ready to go out and do networking and to go to vendor sponsored cocktail events, or um, uh, different events like that, just after hour networking events. And the downside is that really is going to slow their growth, because anybody that really wants to succeed in this business, you have to be able to have those relationships with people, whether they're with vendors, whether it's with your consultants, or just your staff as well. And some people aren't extroverts, right? They're introverts. So we still try to help get everybody to realize that the more you can expose yourself um, to the industry, whether that's becoming an associate AIA member and just sitting and going to meetings with the local AIA to hear what other architects in your community are hearing and learning from, to going to contractor events, to going to events that CREDE hosts as well, the Days of Summer, right? Um, there's such good networking that you don't have to shake everybody's hand, but the more you're there and the more you put yourself out there, the the more you're going to be exposed to. And so what I'd give advice to anybody coming out of school: be prepared to put in a good 5 years to learn the ropes. See as much as you can see, go to as many events, listen, ask questions, right? But by the time you're 5 years into your career, you should be at a senior job captain level, maybe a project management entry level position. And from there, your career can really develop, because you have to get the experience. Unfortunately, I don't feel that most of these colleges give you practical experience. I get a lot of students that come in on their interviews, fifth year students, fourth year students, that want to show me their portfolio, and they're very proud of their portfolio. But frankly, all the portfolios look the same. They've all done a mixed use project, they've done a post office, they've done something residential, commercial, and there's a lot of great graphics and renderings. And I am happy that everybody coming out of school now has great graphic abilities, and that really does help for all this. But I tend to look at their personalities. How is that person going to be in our office atmosphere, right? A lot of students have the ability, but they're going to need to be pliable so that they can learn the ropes, that you're not going to start designing a 15-story hotel day one, but you're going to be with a team that's doing it and learn teamwork. So listen, it's been a great career for me, and I still have a lot of years left in this career. And so I do feel that as an architect, all these students have a lot to look forward to. And even if they come out of school with an architectural degree, there's a lot of things they can go into. They can get into construction and work for a contractor in-house, right? They can work for a company such as yourself as a PM, CM to have that ability and that knowledge. They can work for furniture manufacturers. I've seen architectural students break away into several different businesses and industries still related and enjoy their career. So most important is that you finish your career or you finish your degree and you go focus on what you feel you want to do that's going to make you happy. And if you're happy at the end of the day, the money's going to follow. You'll make enough money to satisfy your taste, and you'll find a way. You'll ask the right questions, and hopefully, that's what success will be for that individual person.
No, great advice. So, if anybody out there is looking for an internship, a job, or to look for potentially a great architect and design, and even interior designers as well, how should they reach you?
Yeah, well, a number of ways. I would say through our website or calling our office and speaking to our marketing director and HR at the office. I'm sure on our website we have a link, an info link for anybody interested. Now, we do generally offer 2 internships a year, and I would say get a hold of us sooner rather than later. If I'm going to get a call in June for a July internship, it's already been filled 3 months earlier. So get a hold of us 6 months in advance. And whether you want to come intern in Chicago or in Long Beach, there's generally always a position or two that's open. And we like to have interns for 2 weeks to 4 weeks, sometimes 6 weeks. It's whatever they have time for, right, to learn the ropes. So that's that. And as of right now, we don't have any open positions for full time. But I think come early part of January, so first quarter of next year, as we see our all of our projects come to fruition, then I could see that we're going to have a pretty good year next year, where we may fill another 8 positions between the two offices just next year.
Well, I look forward to seeing that, Michael, because your success always makes me happy. So, thank you for your time today, and I look forward to seeing you soon in person, my friend.
Yeah, thank you again for having me, and thanks for letting me ramble for this last hour.
Well, thank you all for joining for another episode of Creed Play Offense. Michael Kollin, enjoy your day. Take care, everyone.
Great, thank you.